It is difficult to keep up with every single bad decision that Donald Trump makes because there are just so many of them. And that is partly the point. As Steve Bannon always says, MAGA wants to flood the zone so we are not able to cover every disastrous and dangerous aspect of the Trump presidency. But something that recently happened that we have to ensure does not get overlooked is Donald Trump's appointment of Dan Bongino as Deputy FBI Director, something he announced just yesterday in a pretty crazy post on Truth Social that we are going to get into, and the response from George Conway to this insane appointment. But before we do, if I could quickly ask you to leave a like on this video, and if you haven't already and you enjoy our channel, to hit that subscribe button. It goes a long way, and it really does mean a lot to me. Now, before we get into what Donald Trump had to say about Dan Bongino in that post, first, I do want to hear from George Conway because I think he completely breaks down the threat of Dan Bongino.
To do with owning the libs. I think there's a little bit of that with Donald Trump. He hates the FBI. The FBI investigated him for his various crimes, including the Mar-a-Lago stolen documents case, which was an open and shut case, but yet, Dan Bongino said that everybody associated with that case should be fired. Mm-hmm. And so it's really about revenge. It's about owning his enemies. And also it's about retribution. I mean, he really does, Donald Trump. It's just ingrained in him. He wants retribution against his enemies. And by picking two people who are completely loyal to him and who have spread his disinformation about January 6th and about Spygate, even back in 2016, that's what Bongino got on the radar screen for, and COVID, which Bongino got thrown off of YouTube for permanently. I mean, all this stuff, it's just these are the two perfect people to run an FBI that's controlled by a president who's a criminal.
Let me ask you, Ken, I mean, you are so well sourced within the FBI. I assume, but you tell me, that after Kash Patel was nominated and confirmed, there was this hope that they'd have somebody who was one of their own, right? As the deputy, that who could run things and help maybe serve as a protective layer. What has the reaction been?
It's been shock and horror, because you're absolutely right. They thought, look, as controversial as Kash Patel is, if you put a career agent in there as the deputy, then he can explain, no, sir, that's illegal. We can't do it that way. We have to follow the rules and the law. Now you have two bomb-throwing MAGA outsiders. And look, here are some of the things that Dan Bongino has said. Dan Bongino said that the FBI lied a few months ago when they said, we don't know who the suspect is that planted the bombs outside the RNC and the DNC the day before January 6th. They had this whole campaign seeking information from the public. Dan Bongino went on a podcast and said, oh, that's wrong. They know who did it. It's a conspiracy. Now he's going inside to run the place. And that's what I'm hearing today is just horrifying people who work there.
I mean, I can't. Some of these people have been there for decades. Let me ask you, George, one of the questions I get asked a lot, I mean, just when you're in a train station, is like, what are the guardrails? What can be done to stop this? I mean, I think there are a lot of people who might be on a political enemies list, who might be targeted, just who are concerned about what they could do with their power. What are the legal guardrails here to stop the two of them from...
I mean, the legal guardrails ultimately would be the courts.
Yeah.
Because if they want to bring punitive prosecutions against people, they still have to prove crimes beyond a reasonable doubt. But at the end of the day, in terms of just the mismanagement of the agency, I mean, 38,000 people work for this agency, and the two people at the top don't know anything about how it works. And they've lost a number of people at the top levels already. So it's just, I don't know what the remedy is other than we're stuck with them, and it's not great.
I would say one thing though, another guardrail are the people that work there that will follow the rules and the law. This is a rule-based organization. They're not going to just start investigating people without predication. They will quit, many of them, before they do that, and so we'll find out about it.
But the problem is, who are they going to hire to replace these people? It could be, these January 6ers.
There are a couple of traits that you have to be in Donald Trump's administration that are important to point out. The first is complete fealty to him, obviously. You have to be pretty shameless. You have to abandon your morals. But it is also important that you have to, one, be a media personality. We saw that in Pete Hegseth. We see it in Dan Bongino. Tulsi Gabbard has done her fair share of Fox News hits. But you also have to be a person without qualifications. That is key. It is part of the point. Donald Trump wants chaos in these agencies. Donald Trump wants a Dan Bongino, wants a Pete Hegseth, wants a Kash Patel needing to rely on him. It brings more power into the Oval Office, which is Donald Trump's clear intent. It's the reason for all these MAGA DEI hires, aside from the fact that Donald Trump doesn't care about government, but it is incredibly clear how unqualified Dan Bongino is if you just take a look at what Donald Trump posted. Great news for law enforcement and American justice. Dan Bongino, a man of incredible love and passion for our country, has just been named the deputy director of the FBI by the man who will be the best ever director, Kash Patel. Dan has a master's degree in psychology from CUNY and an MBA from Penn State. He was a member of the New York Police Department, a highly respected special agent with the United States Secret Service, and is now one of the most successful podcasters in the country, something he is willing and prepared to give up in order to serve. No, I don't even need to read the rest of that, because it tells you everything that you need to know. Donald Trump wants a bunch of unqualified media personalities in his administration. First and foremost, they are always focused on the message. Well, of course, violating the Constitution, like I said, fealty to Donald Trump, you got to be a shameless hypocrite, but you also have to be able to communicate. Their biggest enemy is the press. It is the reason why Donald Trump has cozied up to all the CEOs of information platforms, because they are seeking to control the narrative. They know their policies are disastrous. They know they are unpopular. They know they will fail, but they want to distract us while they do so. That is what it is all about. They're going to tear our government apart, and if they can just keep our attention elsewhere, they can try to succeed. Dan Bongino is bought in. He might be one of the craziest of all the MAGA appointments, of all the members of the MAGA cult. And that's incredibly clear in what he said right here.
So this is what they're doing. This is why Clarence Thomas has been speaking out about the national restraining orders. How a judge in New York can give a restraining order for a congressional district in Wyoming is ridiculous. Clarence Thomas has been warning about this forever. This A. Muse on Twitter is talking about this lawfare too. How this Obama-appointed judge threatened Trump and his team with arrest if they don't restore every dime of funding that had been paused or canceled. Folks, my recommendation is Donald Trump should ignore this. This judge is obviously not acting constitutionally at all. It should be ignored. Demand it, resuming all, but you can't order the executive to spend. I mean, you've effectively usurped the power of the executive. Now, before I get to the next, I'm going to play you a video by Crazy. Big Balls McGroin is here. Big Balls. I knew we had one. I knew it. I was thinking about this on the Monday show. I'm like, we better have a Big Balls McGroin, or the McGroin Army's losing their influence, man. Thank you. You guys, I knew the McGroins would be there. I knew. You guys and ladies are the best. That's fantastic. Folks, threatening with arrest. Who's going to arrest them? The marshals? You guys know who the U.S. Marshals work for? Department of Justice. That is under the, executive branch. Donald Trump's going to order his own arrest and his team. This is ridiculous.
So it seems like Dan Bongino not only wants Trump to defy judges, but he also wants them seemingly arrested. Really? And now he's the guy with the power to do it? To investigate people? To go after them? Like, this is once again what Russ Vought, who wrote Project 2025 and is heading up Donald Trump's Office of Management and Budget, said about federal workers. He wants them to feel traumatized. Donald Trump and Elon Musk and Russ Vought know they cannot fire everyone. They want to make them quit. They want to make them leave. They want to make it traumatizing to show up to work and try to fight to make this country a better place. That's what they want to do to anyone who will oppose them. That's the plan. It is the reason why Donald Trump is bringing in his unqualified loyalists. Speaking of them not being qualified, you want to hear something pretty sad? Listen to Scott Jennings try to defend Dan Bongino.
But if I may address one issue. You just denigrated Bongino's law enforcement credentials. He was a cop and a Secret Service agent. You denigrated his academic credentials. He has a master's degree.
Just because he was a police officer doesn't make him qualified to run a 38,000 person, $11 billion budget agency, just like Pete Hegseth.
But you know what does? Because he
National Guardsman or whatever he was doesn't either. Thank you for your
the
service.
confidence and the pleasure of the president. And I'm
judgment
sorry
is
that you're,
terrible.
And I'm
Just
sorry
whose
that
judgment is
you are not
god-awful.
yet over the outcome of the election.
No,
in our
because
system,
look at what's happening to our country. And I'll never be over it, Scott. This is dismantling our democracy in front of our eyes, and you guys are okay with it.
We had a city that was smaller than the amount of people that live on this block, and he was the Secretary of Transportation. You had the guy who was stealing luggage. I mean, I think anyone who's defending at any point defending the Biden administration.
But this is the FBI.
So?
Correct.
Yeah, and
what
this
makes
is someone,
those jobs any
this is someone who has a career in law enforcement for many years.
Freedom is at stake.
Does Dan Bongino have the qualifications to be the second person in charge of the FBI?
Yes, he has law enforcement, he has academic, and again, let me just stress this. I've mentioned this before.
So when you stack up
they
his
serve at the
credentials
pleasure of the president. That's the political appointment.
I know that is the answer to every question, is that Donald Trump wants it, so therefore it is good.
For political appointments, yes.
But when we look at, we're talking about people who are qualified and not, and you look at his resume and compare it to Republican and Democrat nominees for that same position, is he qualified?
I mean, first of all, I'm not sure all the people that have been appointed in the past have covered themselves in glory. And some of them have done a terrible job and gotten in lots of trouble.
Look,
and this is a reform-minded
administration.
administration. They got outsiders.
These are not competent people, and I'm tired of acting like they are. I don't know, and I've been saying this a lot lately, if y'all tune in to the Bulwark podcast recently, but Tim Miller had a discussion at the Principals First with Governor Jared Polis of Colorado, who I think is a great Democratic governor, and he's done great work over there. But when they were talking about RFK Jr., Jared Polis was kind of erring on the side of, as he described it, positivity. I hope RFK Jr. makes our country healthier. I hope he fights these diseases. I hope he's able to have success. Well, he won't. We know that. He's ending funding for disease research. He is not a vaccine skeptic, he's an extremist. He attacks settled science and gets in the way of progress. You don't need to hope. You know it's not going to happen. And when we pretend there's a possibility, all we're allowing is legitimacy of people who are too dangerous to be given the benefit of the doubt. Cut it off right there. Do not act like these people have a chance to do anything but make our country much, much worse. That is what MAGA DEI is all about. And we're going to call it out every single day on the show. And if you want to support that, as always, you can hit that subscribe button. You can leave a like on this video. And if you stuck around to the end, drop a blue heart in the comments. And until next time, I'll see you soon.